Everybody welcome. We're going to recap. We're going to play the entire file. This will be the first day. I'm not going to talk a lot. This goes day one. I get caught up. Murder trial. Uninterrupted here. Back to the break. See it up on the outcast.
Good morning, everybody. Make sure. All right. We are on. The defendants are present, represented by counsel. I have a panel available. The couple just housekeeping matters with the court. Indicated to counsel that I would address the panel on two questions that came through. I've gone ahead and done that. The court also last night sent generally the court's rulings on the state's motion in limine with regard to probation and the defendant's motion in limine with regard to the vanity plate. As indicated in that short email last night, the court is granting the state's motion in limine with regard to probation. I'll put a written order into the record so that it is in the record. And the court is denying the defense motion in limine with regard to the vanity plate. And again, we'll put a written order into the record. Those are the matters I believe I have open before the court. Anything from the state before we get started?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
Anything from Travis McMichael?
Nothing from Travis.
From Greg McMichael?
No, Your Honor.
From Roddy Bryan?
Your Honor, we filed two motions earlier today. We don't want to waive those motions by not insisting on a hearing before trial. But as long as there's no waiver by waiting, we're comfortable with addressing those later today after the presentation of evidence to the jury.
All right, that being the case, sounds like we are ready to proceed. The court will go ahead. We'll get the panel in, and I'll go ahead and get them sworn, provide them with a preliminary charge, same preliminary charge we discussed yesterday, and then go straight into opening. This is the state ready to proceed on that basis?
Yes, Your Honor, the state is ready.
All right. All right, let's go ahead and get the panel.
Let's all rise for jury, please.
Please be seated.
All right, let's do that. Let's shift juror 13 over a little bit. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I should say welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. As I indicated to you the other day, we're going to get started with opening arguments and hopefully get into some evidence in this case. Before we do so, I'm going to go ahead and swear you in as the panel in this case, and then I'm going to give you some preliminary instructions. Once I have finished with that, we're going to move right into opening statements. So if I could please have you stand and raise your right hand. Ladies and gentlemen, you shall well and truly try the issues formed upon this bill of indictment between the state of Georgia versus Travis McMichael, Greg McMichael, and William R. Bryan, who are charged each individually and as parties concerned in the commission of a crime by the grand jury of Glynn County in indictment with the following charges: count 1, murder; count 2, felony murder; count 3, felony murder; count 4, felony murder; count 5, felony murder; count 6, aggravated assault; count 7, aggravated assault; count 8, false imprisonment; and count 9, criminal attempt to commit a felony. And a true verdict you shall give according to the evidence, so help you God. All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please have a seat. All right, first off, can everybody hear me? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been sworn and impaneled, and you're about to try a criminal case entitled the State of Georgia versus Travis.
All right, everybody, we're getting ready to switch over here to storm coverage real quick. Change my banner. Change my banner real quick here. Because update on the storm, and I want to get to that update. So one second here, get my banner updated. All right, let's get into all right, here's updated storm coverage.
12 hours going from category 1 all the way up to category 5, expected to weaken, of course, before it reaches Tampa Bay. But Tampa Bay, there isn't going to be enough land interaction there, Eric, to weaken this, right? I mean,
well, and again, the eye isn't going to make land interaction at all. So, the outer bands will, but if the eye doesn't make, the eye is what sucks up the moisture and the energy from that warm Gulf of Mexico. And if the eye is offshore, then it's really not going to weaken all that much.
All right. We're here with you live, of course, in your hurricane headquarters on Tracking the Tropics. Eric, what did we notice any, updates in the, category 4, category 3 stage? Basically, as it's closer to Tampa Bay. No, they just basically updated this to category 5.
Right.
Correct? And why would they do that?
Well, because they knew it was going to be a category 5 and they knew it was going to happen shortly. And, it's significant to have a category 5 storm, in the southern Gulf of Mexico. It's, it warrants an advisory saying, hey, look at this. This storm is extremely powerful. One of the most powerful storms ever recorded in the southern Gulf of Mexico. And it looks like it's going to even get stronger over the next, 8 or so hours as the 8 o'clock update tonight is expected to be 165 miles an hour and still category 5 tomorrow morning, almost 24 hours later, at 8 o'clock Tuesday morning. So when a storm does reach a Category 5 status, National Hurricane Center a lot of times will put out a special update as they did here.
All right. We'll continue to track, of course, updates as they come in. We are here in the palm of your hand on Tracking the Tropics. A reminder to our audience, this is really important. If you don't have traditional TV, right? You don't have access to your local meteorologist on your local television station. That's what we're here for. Eric, of course, here with the Max Fender Weather Team at WFLA. We're here at WFLA to share out our live stream and to basically provide as much experience and expertise of our meteorologists, regardless of whether or not you have access to TV. If you're a cord cutter, you should still be able to get access to your local meteorologists. But really, even more important than that, remember that if you lose power in the Tampa Bay area or anywhere in Florida, or really anywhere at all with any storm that we cover, you might not have access to, your basic essentials at home, but you'll need information. If the cellular infrastructure in the area is still up and running, you can access Tracking the Tropics on Facebook Live, on YouTube Live. You can find our live stream on WFLA.com or on trackingthetropics.tv. We can also, of course, feature the very latest that you have on Report It on WFLA.com/report it if you want to send in weather pictures or video, damage reports from around the area. But Eric, what I'd like to hone in on here is Wobble Tracker, because it's obviously going to be a really important tool for us to showcase exactly where Milton is wobbling, and wobbles could be a huge difference in where the storm makes landfall.
Yeah, I don't think for the next 12 to 24 hours, if this does wobble off track, I don't think it's going to make quite as much difference as once it starts turning to the north. And once it does that, and we start to see whether it turns as far north as the models are indicating or the track is indicating, I think that's going to be important. If this wobbles a little bit further to the south, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. If it wobbles a little bit further to the north, still, I think it's going to be on a pretty straight track until that jet stream starts to pick it up. So once we get into tomorrow afternoon into the evening, JB, when the jet stream starts picking this storm up, that's when we're really going to watch for the wobbles, because if the jet is picking this up and it takes it really far to the north and it's wobbling to the west of the track, then we're looking at more of a Nature Coast or North Tampa storm. But I don't think that's going to happen. If there are any wobbles, I think it's going to move to the east and to the south of the track. And if that's the case, starting tomorrow, I'd say, right around lunchtime into the afternoon, evening, and then all the way through landfall, that's when I think we will see that translate into a cone shift. I don't think the cone is really going to shift much if the wobbles occur right now or for the rest of the day today.
Let's go to we got video questions coming in, and we're of course going to be debuting that feature in just a few minutes. But now that we have a new live stream for a new advisory, we're going to continue to go through the queue of questions that have been coming in over the last several minutes. Yoli Rodriguez for inland areas with #KJB. What kind of wind, sustained and gusts, are we looking to see? She's watching from Zephyr Hills.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be right in the northern eye wall with a given track. So, Category 2, maybe even Category 3 wind, 150, 120 mile an hour sustained. Again, stronger for that short period of time that you're in that eye wall. And I would be surprised if you saw a gust over 135 to even 140 as far inland as Zephyr Hills. A lot of rain. Northern side of the storm has got so much moisture, and it will continue to dump. I'd say a good 8 to even 12 inches max of that rain. And you know what? It'd be more, but the storm is expected to move pretty quickly once it gets close to us and move across the state.
Ashley Moore, Polk County mobile home. See, that's a very important
I would say yes.
detail.
And thank
Should
you.
we evacuate?
And thank you. Yeah, depending on where in Polk County, but if this tracks along I-4, it pretty much tracks through, all of Polk County from west to east, the Lakeland area, all the way to like Davenport on the other side. So if you're in a mobile home, I would definitely evacuate if you can.
All right. This is a very interesting question from Jessica, and let's clarify. Hashtags for us both. Seems that you're following the middle line heavily. Isn't that dangerous to do when the other areas are in the cone? The right side is going to go over areas not in the cone. Well, can we explain the cone and how it works?
Okay.
I mean, look, here's the reason that this most recent update has Tampa right in the middle of the cone. The reason that this is largely significant, one, is because of how densely populated Tampa is and all the surrounding communities. I mean, there are countless suburbs outside of the Tampa metro, obviously, that are going to get impacted as well. It's just an extremely densely populated section of the state. But two, even if this moves off of the NHC's line, even if this nudges north or south, at this point, we are basically looking at significant impacts for the Tampa Bay area, regardless of whether this moves north or moves south. We're getting to a stage now where this isn't missing Tampa. Tampa is going to get impacted unless we get a massive jog to the south, Eric, correct?
Right. So, the reason we didn't really focus on the center line of Helene was because it was going to hit the Big Bend area, right? And maybe it'll jog to the east, maybe it'll jog to the west. What does that mean for us? Nothing, not much. We were going to see significant storm surge regardless. The reason that I am focused on this line this time around is if the center of the track, if this tracks just to the south of Tampa Bay, we are going to have exponentially less damage because the water will be taken out of Tampa Bay. If this jogs 15 miles to the north, then we will have exponentially more damage with 10 to 14 foot of storm surge, twice the amount of Helene. So the reason this time around I'm focusing on that center line is because if that center line, which is the true track, is a little bit to the south, the damage is going to be so much less than if this line is a few miles to the north. Now, in regards to the cone, yes, the storm could be anywhere in this cone, just to the south of Cedar Key, just to the north of Naples. And there's rare times that, 2 days out, it moves out of the cone. I don't see that happening with this storm. Again, if I give my expert opinion, I think that the center line and the track is going to be just south of Tampa Bay itself, which would be the better case scenario in regards to storm surge.
But bad for Sarasota, obviously.
Right. But you know what? Sarasota is going to get storm surge regardless of if this line moves 15 miles south, 25 miles south. Sarasota and Manatee County are going to get 8 to 12 foot of storm surge, whether this makes landfall at St. Pete Beach or this makes landfall at Anna Maria Island or this makes landfall in Siesta Key. So when I pay attention to the track, we're paying attention to the track because right now it is right over Tampa Bay, and storm surge is the number one reason that I'm pinpointing this track.
All right. So we're going to give something a go here, something that we've never tried before in the history of this program. What we're going to try to do is spotlight video questions and comments coming in from WFLA.com/report. It allows people to provide more context to their question beyond just being able to type into a keyboard. Shows more of the human side of the story here when it comes to tracking Hurricane Milton. So this is a bit of, bear with us here, folks, because we haven't done this ever really here before. But you know what, Eric? I think that we are now ready to give.
All right.
All right. So earlier we showed you a selfie from Milton. Let's see if we can progress through, and let's see if we can show this video question coming in from Jamie in Sarasota.
Hey JB, hey Eric. I am in Sarasota off of like Fruitville Road, Honore 17th area, and I'm not in a flood zone. So I was wondering if I need to evacuate or if I should be concerned about possibly getting out of here. Thanks.
So I was checking. You don't have your earpiece in?
No.
Okay. So I'm going to play that one again. Apologies, everybody. I thought Eric had his earpiece in. I'm going to bring up the in-house speaker so that you can hear it, Eric. Hopefully I can bring up the audio again. Apologies, folks. We're going to try this one more time. I think everybody, give me a thumbs up in the comment section. Everybody should have heard the question, but we're going to try to do it again here with Eric being able to hear it.
Yeah.
Hey JB, hey Eric. I am in Sarasota off of like Fruitville Road, Honore 17th area, and I'm not in a flood zone. So I was wondering if I need to evacuate or if I should be concerned about possibly getting out of here. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a really cool feature. Sarasota, a little bit further inland, obviously you're not going to worry about storm surge. and most likely on the southern side of the storm, which is going to be the less rainy side. So really, it all depends on the structure that you're in. If you're in a modular home, you're going to see at least hurricane force wind gust, right? Maybe even sustained hurricane force wind over 75 miles per hour. You could see gusts 85 to 90. So if you have, a carport that's attached to a roof in a modular home that could get blown off, then I would say if you're not in a sturdy structure, yes, I would definitely evacuate. If you are in a concrete home with a solid roof and you're prepared for at least a Cat 1 wind event in your neighborhood, then you could ride it out. I'm not worried about the flooding as much as I'm worried about wind damage. I'm worried about structures that have not been tested, structures that were built, more than 30 years ago, roofs that are weak, carports, modular homes, RVs, trailers, stuff like that. That's what I'm worried about. If you're in one of those and you're pretty much anywhere near this cone and anywhere near in and around the Tampa Bay area, I would definitely evacuate.
All right. So let's bring up, if we can. All right. So let's spotlight exactly how we are doing this, because we're going to really be featuring over the next 15 minutes or so questions coming in through WFLA.com/report it. This is a tool that we mostly use for you to be able to send in damage reports and weather photos and videos. Sometimes when we're not in storm coverage, we use it for beautiful sunsets in the Tampa Bay area. But for, the intents and purposes of this stream and future streams, it's really for tracking the tropics. And in the days ahead, it'll be used more for damage photos and videos. But for today, we're using it for selfie questions into the show. You can take a selfie video. Just let us know where you're giving us details here. Location is really important. Be as detail oriented as you can with your question, and show us a smiling face if you can as well. Let us know how you're watching the program, where you're watching the program from. Any details like that are extraordinarily helpful. So let's come back out here and let's go back to report it. And next up in the queue, we've got Nikki also watching from Sarasota.
Hey guys, my name is Nikki and I am based in Sarasota, just south of Siesta Key, 3 miles inland. I am on the mainland and my family and I are currently trying to decide if we should evacuate. We're only 3 miles off the coast, but I don't know if that's enough. Thanks.
Eric.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to see storm surge 3 miles off the coast. There's several, rivers that run through Manatee and Sarasota County. If the storm surge, which is expected to be bad in Sarasota, kind of pushes the water, into those rivers, and obviously there's going to be a lot of flooding in and around those rivers. So picture what happened with Helene. And if you saw flooding with Helene, it's going to be much, much worse with this. Storm surge, I would say, at least 2 times worse than Helene, maybe even more in Sarasota County. So if you had any kind of flooding with Helene in that area, then you're definitely going to have some flood problems with this one. I'm not really, again, concerned about the rain as much, the rainfall totals and whatnot. I'm more concerned about the wind. And I'm going to say this probably 500 times. I'm concerned about what structure you're in. I'm concerned whether your structure can withhold 100-mile-per-hour wind. If you have glass that you don't have hurricane shutters and that's not hurricane-proof glass, the windows could easily be blown out. So it's hard to say whether you could evacuate given you're at one point, one location. You have to be in a structure that can withhold at least, Category 3 status wind and wind gusts a little bit stronger than that.
Let's go next into the queue. Jessica from Orange City is joining us on Tracking the Tropics.
Hey JB, hey Eric. I am wondering how I will do in an RV in Orange City, debating on evacuating to the land into a house. What are your thoughts?
RV is the detail.
That's all you have to tell me,
Eric.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you have to tell me. Like I said, if you're anywhere in that red shading where the cone is, especially closer to the center line, and you're in an RV, it's not safe. I'm just going to be straight up with you. It's not safe.
Let's go next.
If you're in an RV, get out. Go inland into a house. Don't stay in an RV. inland. Just don't do it. Don't do it. Get out. Evacuate.
Next, who's up in the queue? I want with reported. We're now getting, and pun not intended, flooded with questions here. We are not going to be able to get to every video question. We're going to do our very best to get to as many of them as possible. We'll go next to Kevin in Sebring. Kevin is up next.
Hey guys, watching your live feed. Hey, question for you.
The immediate coast.
You know, yeah.
Closed. There were a lot of houses that, you know, water was in the first floor. And that was after Ian passed, right? Because there was a lot of rain. There was a lot of freshwater flooding. I don't foresee a huge rain event in that area. But if water is pushed into, you know, onto the coast, into Charlotte Harbor, Peace River, Myakka River, depending on if you live in and around near rivers that would flood, then yeah, you're probably not going to be okay. But most of Northport and most of I-75 area in regards to flooding, probably not going to be an issue. Again, can your home withstand a Category 1 hurricane force wind? Can your home withstand 70-mile-an-hour wind gusting to 85? You know, that's what you have to ask yourself.
All right, continuing on. Philip, yeah, no, I mean, look, it doesn't always have to be a question on Tracking the Tropics. This is a live Q&A, but we can spotlight comments as well, right, Eric? So
yeah, very good.
Philip says, not really a question, but a comment. Anyone living in a mobile home anywhere close to the track should have a plan in place. I think this is important to say.
Yeah, and I mean, they are the most vulnerable, right? In a mobile home, modular home, trailer, RV park, whatever you want to call it. If you're anywhere near the track, even if you're anywhere in the red, you know, I would definitely evacuate. It's better to be safe than sorry. Those structures cannot withstand, for the most part, hurricane force, even wind gusts in a lot of scenarios. As I said before, they're attached to carports, mainly the modular homes, mobile homes. And once that carport rips, it rips part of your roof off. And then all of a sudden the rain's coming in and, you know, it's just not a pretty thing.
Let's go to Justin on YouTube Live. Hashtag AJB. How long do the strongest winds, if you're in the strongest part of the storm, given the speed the storm is moving?
Yeah, so basically he's saying...
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, he's saying, well, you know, it's going to move pretty quick. But we're seeing... and you know what I'll do? I will show... And again, these are going to be a point in time. And I want to stress that. Because you're going to see pretty strong wind gusts. And this is the GFS model, which is one of the worst case scenarios. And what I'm going to do is... So I'm going to point this around 8 o'clock. Okay. So we start to see the wind increasing. Now this is wind gusts. And then we go to 11 o'clock. So now look, we're at 100+ mile an hour wind gust. And again, this is a point in time. This is 11 o'clock sharp, Wednesday night.
Okay. This wasn't the original stream for the day. The original stream for the day was going to be port. We're going to get back to port. I'm not going to find the port of it. There we go. All right, I think it's set back up for what we originally had coming before. Give me 1 second. I'm updating the stream on this side. And I got to get my banners out of the way here. And then get this one going there. All right. Back to the trial of a mod operator. This was a long time ago, but people may have seen it, may not have seen it. Here you go. The trial of a mod operator.
McMichael, Greg McMichael, and William R. Bryan. The defendants have been charged, each individually and as parties concerned in the commission of a crime, by the grand jury of Glynn County in an indictment composed of the counts that I just read to you in the oath. To this indictment, the defendants have pled not guilty, and each denies every allegation therein. This is what forms the issue that you have been selected, sworn, and impaneled to try. Before we begin the trial, I'm going to give you some preliminary instructions on fundamental principles of criminal law. I will also instruct you on the role of the judge, the jury, and the lawyers, and give you an overview of the trial procedure. Many of you may have never served on a jury before. It is therefore necessary that these instructions be given so that you have a general understanding of the procedure in a criminal trial, what will be expected of you, and how you are to conduct yourself during the trial. The defendants are charged in the indictment with crimes that are violations of certain laws of the state of Georgia. I want to emphasize to you that the indictment, including all of the counts therein, and the pleas of not guilty are the legal procedures by which these criminal charges are brought against each defendant. The charges and the plea of not guilty are not evidence of guilt, and you should not consider them as evidence or implication of guilt of any crime whatsoever. The defendants are presumed innocent until each is proven guilty. Each defendant enters upon the trial of the case with a presumption of innocence in his favor. And this presumption remains with the defendant until it is overcome by the state with evidence that is sufficient to convince you beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty of the crime or crimes charged. No person shall be convicted of any crime unless and until each element of the crime is proven beyond a reasonable doubt. The burden of proof rests upon the state to prove every material allegation of the indictment and every essential element of the crimes charged beyond a reasonable doubt. However, the state is not required to prove the guilt of the accused beyond all doubt or to a mathematical certainty. A reasonable doubt means just what it says. It is a doubt of a fair-minded, impartial juror honestly seeking the truth. It is a doubt based upon common sense and reason. It does not mean a vague or arbitrary doubt, but it is a doubt for which a reason can be given, arising from a consideration of the evidence or lack of evidence, a conflict in the evidence, or any combination of these. There's no burden of proof upon the defendants whatsoever. It's to a defendant to prove his innocence. When a defense is raised by the evidence, the burden is on the state to negate or disprove it beyond a reasonable doubt. Though you may consider all of the evidence as a whole, conviction of one defendant does not necessarily require conviction of another. You, the jury, must determine whether the state has proven the guilt of each defendant beyond a reasonable doubt. If, after giving consideration to all of the facts and circumstances of this case, your minds are wavering, unsettled, or unsatisfied, then that is a doubt of the law, and you should acquit that defendant. But if no doubt exists in your minds about the guilt of the accused, then you would be authorized to convict that defendant. If the state fails to prove a defendant's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, it would be your duty to acquit. Now, under our system, it is my duty as the trial judge to determine the law that applies in this case and to instruct you, the jury, on the specific rules of law that you must apply to the facts in arriving at a verdict. I'm giving you some of those instructions now. I will give you more detailed instructions after the evidence has been presented and the lawyers have made their closing arguments. During the trial, I may be called upon to rule on motions or objections to evidence. Nothing I say in making these rulings or at any time during the trial is evidence, and it should not be considered as an indication that I have any leaning in this case whatsoever. My only interest in this case is to see that it is fairly tried, according to the laws and the Constitution of the state of Georgia and the Constitution of the United States. As expected, the lawyers serve as advocates to their clients and are duty-bound to represent their clients to the best of their ability. The lawyers also serve as officers of this court And as such, they are bound to follow applicable laws, trial procedure, and rules of evidence during the trial. If at any time the lawyers believe that any law, procedure, or rule of evidence is being violated, they may make motions regarding the conduct of the trial or objections to the admission of evidence. In making these motions or objections, the lawyers are simply seeking to fulfill their duties to their clients and to the court. Now, sometimes these motions or objections may require the court to consider issues outside your presence. When this occurs, you will be excused to the jury room. We will try to minimize the number and length of these interruptions, and I do ask for your patience when this occurs. Now, ladies and gentlemen, trial procedure in a criminal trial is generally as follows. First, the attorneys for both sides have the opportunity to make what is called an opening statement. This opening statement is not evidence. Remember that what the lawyers say is not evidence, but it is a preview or an outline of what they expect the evidence to be. Following the opening statements, evidence will be presented. Evidence can be in the form of testimony given by witnesses or physical evidence that will be labeled with exhibit numbers for identification. After the presentation of evidence, the attorneys have the opportunity to make what is called a closing argument. At this time, the attorneys may suggest which laws are applicable and how they should be considered in light of the evidence. Following closing arguments, I will charge you more specifically on the law that applies to this case. I will then ask you to retire to the jury room to deliberate and to reach a verdict. Now, the jury has a very important role. You must decide the facts of the case from the evidence presented, and then apply the law I give you to those facts. Now, evidence is the means by which a fact is established or disproved. Evidence can be either testimony or exhibits. Testimony is what you hear from people who take the witness stand and swear to tell the truth. Exhibits are documents, photographs, and other physical items that are admitted during the trial. Certain things are not evidence and must not be considered. For example, statements and arguments made by the lawyers are not evidence. In their opening statements and closing arguments, the lawyers will discuss the case and provide an overview. But again, their remarks are not evidence. Also, questions and objections made by the lawyers are not evidence. Only the witness's answers to questions are evidence. Now, I will admit or exclude evidence according to the rules. If a lawyer makes an objection and I overrule it, that means the evidence is admitted and you may consider it. On the other hand, if I sustain an objection, this means that the evidence is excluded from the trial and you may not consider it. You should consider only that testimony and only those exhibits that are admitted. You should not assume or infer anything about evidence which I have excluded. If you happen to hear or see evidence that I end up excluding from the trial, you should disregard it entirely in your deliberations and in arriving at your verdict. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you, the jury, must determine the credibility and believability of witnesses. It is for you to determine which witness or witnesses you will believe and which witness or witnesses you will not believe, if there are some whom you do not believe. In determining the credibility or believability of witnesses, you may consider all of the facts and circumstances of the case, the manner in which the witnesses testify, their interest or lack of interest in the case, their means and opportunity for knowing the facts about which they testify, the nature of the facts about which they testify, the probability or improbability of their testimony, and the occurrences about which they testify. You may also consider their personal credibility insofar as it may appear to you from the trial of the case. As the fact finder, it is your duty to believe the witnesses whom you think are most believable. It is for you alone to determine what testimony you will believe and what testimony you will not believe. Now, it is important that you pay close attention during this trial. If at any time you cannot hear, or see the evidence, or if you are suffering from any discomfort that distracts you, please inform me or the bailiff, and we will do what is needed to make sure that you can hear and see the evidence and give it your undivided attention. If you need a break at any time, please raise your hand or alert one of the bailiffs, and I will recognize you. Now, you should consider the evidence with an open mind, and you should not reach any final conclusions until the trial is over. Do not jump to conclusions before all of the evidence has been presented. Remember that you are the ones who have been qualified as fair and impartial jurors deciding this case. No other influence should affect your decision. For that reason, you may not discuss this case with anyone, including family and friends, or let anyone discuss the case with you or around you. This includes discussing or sharing information by email, texting, blogging, or any form of social media until actual deliberations begin. That is, until after you have heard all of the evidence, the lawyer's closing arguments, and you have been fully charged on the law that applies to this case. You must not discuss this case even amongst yourselves in the jury room, during breaks, or anywhere else. Do not at any time during the trial request, accept, agree to accept, or discuss with any person any type of payment or benefit in return for supplying any information about the trial. You must promptly tell me about any incident you know of involving an attempt by any person to improperly contact or influence you or any other member of the jury.